My dear friends, we looked at the infinite power we have within us. And I want to invite all of us today to look at the source or how we connect with that power. And one of the things that we connect to this power is through our thoughts. That's why, if you can remember well, when we were discussing about the manipulations of the devil, we said the first thing the devil does is shoots at our thoughts, especially with fear, with doubt, and with guilt. And when we were discussing power in the perspective of faith, we saw that for us to be able to exercise that power fully, we must make sure that our conscience is pure, that there is nothing which the devil can use against us in our conscience. Our conscience should be pure towards God and towards humanity. That is to say, we should make sure that we are in state of purity. Try our level best to avoid sin, which brings impurity within us, which is used by the devil as a bite to hook on us, not to be able to evolve, to be able to come in contact or to connect with the real power, the infinite power of God, which is deposited in us. So, our thoughts have spiritual powers of tremendous potency. But this is not the power I'm talking of. Then you may ask, oh, then why have you started mentioning about our thoughts? This is because our thoughts have the capacity to connect us with that power. And as we continue, we'll see how these our thoughts, they can help us to connect with that power. These thoughts, they can raise us to connect with the powerhouse of the universe, which is God. The same power of our thoughts can entirely separate us from the powerhouse that is God. So up to that point, we can say that one of our greatest weapons is our thoughts. And if our thoughts are entangled, if our thoughts are squeezed, if our thoughts are not pure, then the devil will use that against us. Remember, as we saw, this separating ourselves from God is not reality. It is just in our conscience. It is the illusion which blankets the reality by projecting our thoughts to a state of guilt and pure consciousness, making us think that God has nothing to do with us. We are unworthy, and even if we call upon God, He is not going to come to our rescue because we feel that we are not worthy of His presence. But that is not the reality. It is just the illusions in our minds. So, through the divine sparkle of power within us, which is really our real self, we are able to connect with the infinite power, the powerhouse, which is the Spirit of God. One thing we should know is that divine life and power is ours only if we realize they are ours. But as long as we are ignorant, we don't know our oneness with the divine source of all life, we are incapable of appropriating this power which is really ours. If, however, we enter into the knowledge, we find ourselves the possessors of this infinite power and unlimited resources. This power then is of God, yet it is ours. Because we saw in the beginning that we were created as God's masterpiece with His power deposited within us. But one thing we should remember is this power, although it is in each one of us, but it is not revealed to everyone in the same way. This power is revealed, is given to those who have attained the level of being able to be trusted with the use of this power. Why do I say such thing? An example, we have seen many people who have connected to this power with pure motive to be connected with God. Then the power was entrusted, was revealed to them. Like they could pray for people and healing happens. Then what do? When they see that everybody is channeling to them, they start misusing that power. They start using that power to benefit themselves by pressing, by asking from those who come to seek for their help. So this power is diverted from being for the help of the people to being for personal benefit. That's why before this power is fully given to us, or just a tip of it, we must have undergone a process whereby we surrender everything to God, not for our own benefit, but we do everything for God. Many ancient teachers lament the fact that certain secrets are being spread anyhow today. Secrets that in the past were being closely safeguarded. Which are these secrets? Are they not the powers which we have? But then they used to make sure that the person who is able to connect with those powers is not just any person, but somebody who is really ready spiritually. This is also for the same reason as I have explained. This is because those people who have not evolved fully, they can misuse these powers for destruction. This we see with the witch doctors and witches. They have that capacity, but they use their powers in a negative way. They have the capacity to connect with these powers, but they use them to destroy instead of building, instead of saving. They destroy life. But then we may ask ourselves, if we say that we have the power, which is infinite power within us, why do the witches and witch doctors overcome us? This is because we have not come in contact, we have not connected with that power fully. I give you another example. I take you to the Old Testament. When Moses went to Pharaoh, he performed miracles. And so also the prophets, the false prophets of Pharaoh, were also performing the same miracles. But then it came a point when Moses performed the last miracle of killing of the firstborn. They could not do that because it is not in their power to take life. So if we can only know that we have the power within us, I'm not saying that we are not going to be challenged by these evil people who has this power. They will challenge us. But when we guard ourselves and exercise that power with a pure conscience, we are going to win them. You know why? Because for us, as children of God, God is on our side, like He was with Moses. So these evil people who are using these powers, they will keep putting blocks. But there is a time, if we keep holding on God, we will pull them down to zero. There are also those whom we call black and white magicians. They also try to connect with this power, but they use this power in a negative way. But in the presence of any child of God who has connected to this power, they are reduced to beggars and impotency of doing anything to them. This is because these children of God who has connected to the powerhouse, that is God, the source of infinite power, there is nothing can conquer them. We saw that we have that unconquerable power within us. So we can say that although we have this power within us, but the fact is there are spiritual powers and influences that withholds the eyes of the seekers from seeing until they are ready for the revelation. That power then lies dormant within us. I guess now you are understanding why I said that this power is not given just to anybody. This power is not refilled just to anybody, but it is refilled to those who have been proven to be trustworthy to use these powers in a positive way, not for their own benefit, but for the benefit of God and His people. Then the question is, how do we evolve? How do we develop ourselves up to that level where we can be trusted to have this power refilled and to a level where we can exercise it for the benefit of many? When we are in search of the truth, and we have given up all selfishness, striving after earthly and worthy things, and we cease to use our self-will in conflict with the great will of the Most High, that is God, then we are ready for the revelation to connect with this power. As simple as that, but it's very difficult to come to a state where we give ourselves selflessly, not for any gain, but for the glory of God and for the benefit of His people. It's not easy, but it is as simple as that. We look for the truth. We make sure that we have selflessly given ourselves. We don't go after earthly things which are unworthy. Then we cease to contradict our own will with the will of God, because we saw that there are conflict within us between doing our will and the will of God. This is because we are still selfish. We are looking for what is befitting us, not for the will of God, what God wants us to do for His people. Then the challenge comes in this world where knowledge and reason has been given the priority. Many people, they see that self-surrender, giving ourselves selflessly for the benefit of others, they see it as a weakness. But my dear friends, that is our strength. Because as we saw, the moment we give ourselves selflessly, it is not us doing the task, but God Himself, to whom we give ourselves to, is going to work using us. And that is when we are connected with the infinite power and we can do anything in this world, as long as we do that for the glory of God and for the benefit of His people. One thing we should keep in our minds: we have never been separated from the divine source of this infinite power. We only do that through our thoughts. The separation that we experience is not real. It is illusion which we create in our mind, which builds in our conscience, especially if we don't keep our conscience pure. Because the devil uses that to ruin us, create these illusions that we are separated from God. We can never be separated from the Spirit because we are spiritual. The Spirit is an integral part of one complete whole, and so it cannot be separated. We cannot be separated from God, who is the source of the infinite power, because He breathed that Spirit of His in us. And this Spirit lives and moves and has life in God. That means we also live and move and we have life in God. And as God dwells in the Spirit, so also does God dwell in us. The sorrowful thing is, many people are not aware of this intimate relationship with the divine. And because they are unaware or they refuse to believe it, so they are in one sense separated from God. But if they believe and be aware that they have this intimate relationship with God, then they can never and will never be separated from God. But as we have said, this separation is only in our mind and our beliefs. It is not a reality. But then we create that, and by so doing, we distance ourselves from God, and then we fail to connect to this infinite power within us. We are unable to exercise it because we are not in one with the one which can spark it to work in us. So we cannot be separated from God. Yet, as long as we think that we are separated and alone, we will be weak and helpless, as though actually we were separated from God. But immediately as we realize our relationship with God, then we surpass all these weaknesses and attain the power. We pass from death to life. One moment we are far away in the desert, separated from God. One moment we realize our intimate relationship with God and we come back to God, be united with God, and boom, the power takes control of us. And we exercise it because we have realized our oneness with God and we have kept our conscience pure. So, dear friends, when we awaken to the fact that all the power of infinite is ours and we can draw upon it, then we can never fail. But to know that we are marching to the victory, and then it will be seen the power of our thoughts, because it is our thoughts which makes us think that we are separated from God. But the same thoughts, when we think that we are in intimate relationship with the powerhouse that is God, then everything turns over completely and we become something new. While the thoughts are not the power of the Spirit, but it is the power by which man either connects himself up to the infinite power, opening himself to divine flow, or cuts himself off from this divine flow. So in conclusion, we can say that the thoughts do the following to us. First, in the sense we are what we think we are. If I think I'm weak, then I'm gonna be weak. If I think I'm strong, then I'm gonna be strong. That is one of the ways in which these thoughts are very important in our connecting with this infinite power. Because when I think I have the power, for real, I have it. When I think I'm connected with God, I'm good with God, for real I am. But the moment I think that I'm separated, I'm weak, I'm gonna be weak. On the other hand, when we think we are just material things, then that is what we will remain to be. But when we think that we are spiritual being, then we will have that power of being a spiritual being, and we'll be able to exercise these powers as spiritual beings, not just material who have limits. But if we think we are spiritual beings, then we will rise to that level. I want to bring this context into our level. Think of when you have a task to complete, but then you think that this work is too much for me, it's so difficult for me. At the end of it, you will find yourself unable to do that work. But if you have a task to complete and you tell yourself, this I can, at the end, you will find that you have done that work in ways that you cannot even yourself explain. Why? Because you tuned your thoughts that you can, and the power awakened within you, and at the end, that power performs its duties within you without you knowing. But the moment you say, oh, it is too difficult for me, why have they given this post to me? It is too big for me, I'm still young, I don't have that capacity, then the end, you will be a failure. But if they give that post, that position to you, and you say, okay, I want to believe that they saw something in me and I'm capable of doing this work, you will go forward, and before you know it, you accomplished that work in a miraculous way, which yourself you are like, I cannot imagine I did this, because it was not you. The moment you awakened the spiritual being within you, then everything was made possible, because it is not the flesh anymore doing the work, but the spiritual being in you. So the power within us is infinite, for by faith in it, we are directly linked with the spiritual power of the universe, that is God. The divine spark within us connects us to the sacred flame, thus making us potentially in one with that flame. It's like fire. For those of us who use firewood, maybe they will understand me better. If you keep a spark of just one firewood, you keep it nicely, tomorrow you will be able to lit a big fire with just that one spark. That is what goes on in our lives. That is what goes on when we exercise our spirit with pure consciousness. We lit that spark and its flames are unquenchable. That is what happens with our connection with God, because that spark is in us. Then the moment it comes in contact with that flammable thing, whichever it is, it blazes into a big fire. That is what I mean by saying we have a spark of the infinite power within us. And one thing I want to point out, for all this to happen, there must be a change within us. We must learn to think after the Spirit, as spiritual beings instead of material beings. We should raise the standards of our thoughts, not to think ourselves low there, where we are stepped by the evil one. We should try to think at a higher level, where we see ourselves as spiritual beings. This, I don't say that we should be proud of our spiritual achievements, but let us try our level best, always to think ourselves in the level of a spiritual being, but not a material being which is useless and powerless. And to sum up all this, I want to give you the example of the prodigal son. Just as the prodigal son came into his senses after separating himself from the father, he went and did everything he wanted to do in this world. But then he came to his senses and realized that his intimate relationship with the father has not been broken, and still he can go there. That is where we should place ourselves. We must come back to ourselves and leave the shell of the pigs, which are negative thoughts, the thoughts which we think ourselves as material things, and come back to our Father, where there is bread enough for life. That is to connect with the powerhouse, that is God. Exercise our spirit with pure conscience, and hence we will be able to exercise this infinite power deposited within us. So see, in your life, you have infinite power if only you can connect with the spiritual source, that is God. I wish to end this discussion about our thoughts and how they help us to connect with the infinite power within us, how they ignite that spark of the infinite power within us into a blazing flames. And I hope you have gained something by the use of our minds, our thoughts. We can be spiritual beings. Instead of the material beings we consider ourselves to be, Lord there. Remember, the Spirit of God is in us, and so we are spiritual. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you around again.